The body of a Canadian woman who was missing in LA has now been found. Elisa Lam disappeared 3 weeks ago.
Yesterday, her body was found inside a water tank on top of the hotel where she had been staying.
There are stories that the internet simply refuses to forget. They don't just disappear with time. They evolve. They twist and turn, getting dissected, analyzed, and reimagined by the curious minds of millions. These aren't just stories. They become urban legends, digital folklore, and sometimes, despite the passing of years, they only grow in mystery and complexity. One such case, deeply etched into the psyche of the internet generation, is that of Elisa Lam. Her story, captured in grainy surveillance footage and cemented in the collective consciousness, continues to raise questions that no official report could satisfy. Over a decade has passed since the events unfolded at the infamous Cecil Hotel. Yet, public fascination has never faded. Claims of a final solution to the case surfacing in 2025 have ignited a fresh wave of attention, theories, and controversy. But as we'll uncover in this deep dive, the so-called answer may have only deepened the mystery. Elisa Lam's story didn't begin as a viral mystery. It began as a quiet disappearance in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. A 21-year-old Canadian university student traveling solo through California, Elisa chronicled her journey online through blog posts and Tumblr updates. She was open about her struggles with bipolar disorder and depression, but her content also reflected the thoughts of a thoughtful, creative young woman exploring the world. Her last known location, the Cecil Hotel, a building steeped in a grim legacy of crime, suicides, and eerie coincidences. For days, there was no trace of her. Concerned family members, friends, and police began searching. But it wasn't until hotel guests started complaining about low water pressure, strange smells, and even discolored water from their taps that the investigation took a dark turn. On February 19, 2013, Elisa's body was found in one of the hotel's rooftop water tanks. Naked, her clothes floating nearby. No clear signs of trauma, only questions, disturbing ones. And then came the elevator footage. If there's a single piece of evidence that transformed Elisa's disappearance into a viral internet phenomenon, it's that video released by the LAPD. The surveillance footage shows Elisa stepping into an elevator around midnight. What she does next captivated and terrified millions. She presses multiple buttons. She waits. The elevator doors don't close. She peeks out, darts back in, hides in the corner, steps out again. Her hands move in strange, jerky motions, as if she's communicating with someone or something that the camera can't see. Her behavior seems frantic, confused, and at times almost otherworldly. Then she walks out of frame, and that's it. She's never seen alive again. The video spread like wildfire. It became a magnet for theories and speculation. What exactly was Elisa seeing? Was someone following her? Could it have been a psychological break due to her bipolar disorder? Or was something far more sinister at play? The internet dissected it frame by frame, searching for answers. The way the elevator doors refused to close struck many as especially bizarre. People speculated the footage had been edited, perhaps to hide the presence of someone else. Forums filled with theories. YouTube exploded with commentary, deep dives, and reenactments. Some thought she was playing a Korean elevator game said to transport players to another dimension. Others claimed demonic possession or government conspiracy. There were those who focused solely on the hotel's dark history, drawing eerie parallels with past deaths and murders that had occurred there. But amid the whirlwind of speculation, mental health experts pointed out how the behaviors seen in the video could be symptomatic of a severe manic or psychotic episode, particularly if Elisa had stopped taking her prescribed medications. Her toxicology report later revealed she had low levels of her prescribed drugs in her system, suggesting she may not have been taking them consistently. That revelation, though important, did little to quiet the storm of online obsession. There was a grim fascination in how so many unsettling threads converged. A haunted hotel, a vulnerable traveler, strange surveillance footage, and a deeply tragic ending. It felt like something from a horror film, but it was real. And that's what makes the Elisa Lam case so haunting. Even now, years later, it raises more questions than it answers. Not just about what happened that night, but about why we're so drawn to mysteries like hers in the first place. According to the documents, this worker claimed he and another employee had found Elisa alive and nonverbal on the rooftop the day she disappeared. He alleged that the rooftop door had been left unlocked due to ongoing maintenance and that Elisa had wandered through it unnoticed, thinking she was simply disoriented and assuming she'd eventually leave. The employee said nothing and walked away. The confession described how days later, after guest complaints about water quality began piling up, the staff realized where Elisa might have gone. By the time they checked the tanks, it was too late. The document ended with the worker expressing regret for being coerced into remaining silent, suggesting that hotel management had prioritized the building's reputation over transparency. To some, this was the final piece of the puzzle. A logical, if still tragic, explanation for how Elisa accessed the roof, how her presence went unnoticed, and why no one came forward earlier. It answered just enough questions to sound plausible. But it didn't take long before skeptics began to tear the whole thing apart. For starters, the documents had no verified chain of custody. The source remained anonymous, and no one could prove that the alleged confession was written by the man it was attributed to. The security logs were riddled with inconsistencies, including date mismatches and terminology that didn't align with known hotel procedures. One section even cited elevator camera specs that experts later said weren't used at the Cecil at the time. Then, there was the lack of supporting evidence. No corroborating witnesses, no time-stamped footage, no names that could be verified. It had all the markings of an internet age myth, a compelling narrative wrapped in secrecy, and just enough detail to seem credible at first glance. The story was torn apart by professionals in forensic psychology, former LAPD officers and amateur sleuths alike. But the damage, or maybe the magic, was already done. The theory was so viral, so widely discussed that it added yet another layer to the already complex tapestry of Elisa Lam's legacy. Whether or not it was true, it made people feel like they were one step closer to closure, or at least to understanding what might have happened in that silent space between the elevator footage and the rooftop discovery. And that's the heart of why this case still feels unsolved even after all the documentaries, the reports, the theories, and even supposed confessions. Every time we get an answer, it spawns more questions. Was it truly accidental? If so, why did it take so long to find her? Why was there no footage of her accessing the roof? Why did the elevator doors remain open for so long? Why did the hotel's security measures fail so completely? Even the theories themselves compete with each other. Some grounded in psychology, others in systemic failure, and still others spiraling into the paranormal or conspiratorial. Beyond the facts, there's something deeper pulling at people. The fear of being alone in a place that should feel safe. The anxiety of mental illness going unnoticed. The eerie truth that you can be surrounded by people and still completely invisible. Elisa's case reflects a chilling intersection of vulnerability, neglect, and silence. It also reflects our culture's obsession with mystery, how the media we consume, the stories we tell, and the online spaces we inhabit shape the way we experience tragedy. In Elisa's case, the CCTV footage didn't just document her final known moments. It created a cultural artifact, a riddle, a ghost story dressed in the clothes of reality. Whether or not the 2025 leak held any truth, one thing is clear. We are still searching for answers, for justice, for meaning in a story that refuses to fade. One of the lessons the Elisa Lam case teaches us is the fine line between curiosity and obsession. Many online communities in their attempt to solve the case have crossed boundaries, harassing people, misinterpreting evidence, and exploiting grief for views and clout. At the heart of this case is a young woman who was struggling. She was human, not a riddle to solve. Regardless of what truly happened, we must remember Elisa Lam, not as a viral story, but as a life tragically lost. The Elisa Lam case still leaves more questions than answers. Was 2025's solution real, or just another twist? Let us know your theory in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss more true crime deep dives. That resides in the hotel. Her unsettling movements in the elevator and her final unexplained appearance in the water tank. Supporters of this theory see these as signs of possession or spiritual manipulation. But perhaps the most outlandish and oddly popular idea is that Elisa was part of some government experiment. This theory leans into the realm of conspiracy, linking her death to secret programs like MK Ultra or theories about biochemical testing. Some even point to the name of a tuberculosis test being conducted around the same time in Los Angeles called the Lam-Elisa test as some kind of eerie coincidence or coded message. Others draw connections to viral fiction, past hoaxes, and real-life cases with uncanny similarities. Was she a test subject? Was her behavior induced? These are questions people still ask despite the lack of concrete evidence. Then came Netflix's crime scene, The Vanishing at the Seal Hotel, which brought the case roaring back into public consciousness in 2001. The four-part documentary attempted to walk the line between exploring internet theories and highlighting the dangers of online sleuthing. One of the most controversial aspects of the series was how it showcased how internet detectives had falsely accused innocent people causing real-world harm. The case of a musician who stayed at the hotel months before Elisa and was wrongly targeted as a suspect is a haunting reminder of how quickly online speculation can spiral out of control. The documentary ultimately leaned toward the mental health explanation, but left plenty of space for uncertainty. Viewers were still left questioning the hotel's security protocols, the missing surveillance footage, and the delay in discovering her body. Far from resolving the mystery, the series reignited interest and debate, proving that even with all the facts laid out, Elisa Lam's case remains one of the most unsettling and perplexing modern mysteries. And maybe that's why people can't stop talking about it. It's not just about how she died, but about how many versions of the truth can exist in one story. In early 2025, a headline spread like wildfire across social media. The Elisa Lam case was finally solved. For a case that had gripped the internet for over a decade, it was a bold claim. The origin, an anonymous source who leaked a trove of alleged documents to a dark web forum. Within days, the files made their way onto Reddit, Twitter, and Discord servers, dedicated to unsolved mysteries, triggering a frenzy of speculation, debate, and renewed obsession. The leaked files included what appeared to be security logs from the Cecil Hotel, audio transcripts from former staff, interviews, and most controversially, a handwritten confession by a maintenance worker who had reportedly passed away in 2023. According to the documents, this worker claimed he and another employee had found Elisa alive and nonverbal on the rooftop the day she disappeared. That resides in the hotel. Her unsettling movements in the elevator and her final unexplained appearance in the water tank. Supporters of this theory see these as signs of possession or spiritual manipulation. But perhaps the most outlandish and oddly popular idea is that Elisa was part of some government experiment. This theory leans into the realm of conspiracy, linking her death to secret programs like MK Ultra or theories about biochemical testing. Some even point to the name of a tuberculosis test being conducted around the same time in Los Angeles called the Lam-Elisa test as some kind of eerie coincidence or coded message. Others draw connections to viral fiction, past hoaxes, and real-life cases with uncanny similarities. Was she a test subject? Was her behavior induced? These are questions people still ask despite the lack of concrete evidence. Then came Netflix's crime scene, The Vanishing at the Seal Hotel, which brought the case roaring back into public consciousness in 2001. The four-part documentary attempted to walk the line between exploring internet theories and highlighting the dangers of online sleuthing. One of the most controversial aspects of the series was how it showcased how internet detectives had falsely accused innocent people, causing real-world harm. The case of a musician who stayed at the hotel months before Elisa and was wrongly targeted as a suspect is a haunting reminder of how quickly online speculation can spiral out of control. The documentary ultimately leaned toward the mental health explanation, but left plenty of space for uncertainty. Viewers were still left questioning the hotel's security protocols, the missing surveillance footage, and the delay in discovering her body. Far from resolving the mystery, the series reignited interest and debate, proving that even with all the facts laid out, Elisa Lam's case remains one of the most unsettling and perplexing modern mysteries. And maybe that's why people can't stop talking about it. It's not just about how she died, but about how many versions of the truth can exist in one story. In early 2025, a headline spread like wildfire across social media. The Elisa Lam case was finally solved. For a case that had gripped the internet for over a decade, it was a bold claim. The origin, an anonymous source who leaked a trove of alleged documents to a dark web forum. Within days, the files made their way onto Reddit, Twitter, and Discord servers, dedicated to unsolved mysteries, triggering a frenzy of speculation, debate, and renewed obsession. The leaked files included what appeared to be security logs from the Cecil Hotel, audio transcripts from former staff, interviews, and most controversially, a handwritten confession by a maintenance worker who had reportedly passed away in 2023. Mental health episode. Some began to speculate whether the water tank scenario had been staged after the fact. Was Elisa placed there by someone else? Did someone who had access to the roof help or harm her? Was the tank open from the outside after Sphere? Guests were not supposed to be able to get to the roof at all without setting off alarms. Yet Elisa somehow ended up inside one of the tanks, undressed, with her clothes floating beside her. There was no surveillance footage showing her heading to the roof. No one saw her climbing the fire escape or wandering the hallways in that direction. And no alarms were triggered. All of it felt physically improbable, if not outright impossible, for someone supposedly in the midst of he was already unconscious or dead. The questions that the autopsy didn't and maybe couldn't answer. It was these gaps, the absence of a clear logical timeline that left the door wide open for speculation. Theories filled the void. Foul play, cover-ups, and even supernatural forces. People didn't just want to know how she died. They wanted to know why the story made so little sense. And then there's the setting. The Cecil Hotel wasn't just the backdrop to Elisa Lam's death. To many, it was a character in the story, one with a long, terrifying resume. Decades before Elisa ever checked in, the hotel had earned a reputation as one of the darkest places in Los Angeles. It was home to suicides, overdoses, mysterious deaths, and infamously serial killers. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, lived on the 14th floor during his killing spree in the 1980s. He reportedly returned to the hotel after his crimes, throwing bloodied clothes into dumpsters before heading back to his room. In the 1990s, Jack Unweger, an Austrian journalist turned murderer, also stayed there while he killed sex workers in LA. And long before both of them, in 19, the hotel was reportedly the last place the Black Dahlia Elizabeth Short was seen alive before her gruesome and still unsolved murder. It's easy to understand why conspiracy theorists and paranormal enthusiasts latched onto Elisa's case. The Cecil already had an aura of menace, like something out of a gothic horror story. Some believed the hotel was cursed or that Elisa had been the victim of some dark energy tied to the building's past. Others drew connections between Elisa's death and the hotel's uncanny history of attracting death and despair. Was it a coincidence that another young woman would vanish and die under such strange circumstances within those same walls? Or was it something else entirely? A pattern we can't or won't acknowledge. What happened to Elisa Lam is more than just a mystery. It's a mirror reflecting our obsession with the unexplainable, the tragic, and the terrifying. Her story continues to haunt, not just because it ended in death, but because it left behind a trail of silence, shadows, and too many unanswered questions. When the official investigation stalled, the internet stepped in to fill the void. For nearly every unexplained detail in the Elisa Lam case, there emerged a corresponding theory. Some grounded in reality, others drifting into the surreal. Fueled by viral videos, message boards, Reddit threads, and YouTube deep dives, the mystery became a digital obsession. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone thought they saw something others missed. One of the more grounded explanations, and the one most consistent with the official cause of death, centers on her mental health. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. Supporters of this theory point to the erratic behavior in the elevator video, as well as the autopsy report, which revealed that she may not have been taking her mood stabilizers consistently. The imbalance in her medication could have triggered a manic episode, possibly including hallucinations or paranoia. From this perspective, her actions might reflect confusion, fear, or the overwhelming need to escape something that didn't actually exist. In this light, her tragic death may have been the result of a desperate moment during a mental health crisis. But not everyone accepts that explanation. Others are convinced something more sinister occurred, namely foul play. People have analyzed the elevator footage frame by frame, focusing on Elisa's gestures, which some interpret as fearful or defensive. Could she have been hiding from someone? Was there someone just out of frame? Her odd movements, pressing multiple buttons, peeking out, stepping back in, have been interpreted as evasive behavior. And if she was being followed, why didn't the hotel's cameras capture any evidence of it? Or were those parts of the footage never released? This suspicion bleeds into a third theory that the hotel itself may have been involved in a cover-up. Some critics have questioned how long it took to find her body, considering that the water tanks were a logical place to check after guests began complaining about strange tasting, discolored water. The rooftop was supposedly secured, yet somehow Elisa got up there undetected. And how did no staff member notice anything sooner? These unanswered logistical questions have led some to believe that someone, perhaps even an employee, helped her access the roof or had something to hide. And then, of course, the more chilling and speculative ideas began to take hold. Given the Cecil Hotel's infamous history, some believe that supernatural forces could have played a role. The building's past is littered with violent deaths, suicides, and ties to serial killers. The theory here suggests that Elisa may have been under the influence of something malevolent.